Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, the Switch 2 is real, so why shouldn't Silksong also be real? I bet you'd like to have more bombs, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society would like to have more bombs with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I'm joined, as I am always joined, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. We've got a good show for you today. We're going to be talking about the news from the week, and then on Thursday, we're going to be looking back on Nintendo transition years, but for real this time. Mark, in the meantime, how's it going?
It's going great. You know, I have to say, Patrick,
Yes.
that when you introduced the idea of going through all of the dialogue of the original Legend of Zelda,
Yes.
in place of
Mm-hmm.
It's Dangerous to Go Alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you,
Yes.
which we had been using for many years up to that point.
That's right.
I was taken aback.
Well,
And
because I surprised you on mic with it.
and it took me, I'm not going to lie, a few weeks to get
Uh-huh.
into the groove, but I think I might miss it. If
if we stop changing it up with every... The thing is, I feel like I've backed ourselves into a little bit of like a Simpsons like chalkboard gag kind of thing, where it's like, oh, that's like another new thing that needs to be in every episode.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
But we don't have to write them, I guess, is the good thing.
Yeah.
There are a lot of Zelda games.
Well, it's just something to think about.
Sure.
It's just something to think about.
Mark, I wanted to ask you a "Did you know this?" question. And I know that sometimes when someone says like, "Hey, did you know that blah 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 was blah blah blah?" It's kind of like them just wanting to tell you.
Uh-huh.
But I actually want to know if you know this.
Okay.
And then if you don't know it, I want to tell you about it because I thought it was fun. Samwise Gamgee
Yes.
in the movies played by
Sean Astin.
Astin. Yes.
Astin.
Sean Astin is a nepo baby. Did you know this?
I did.
He has a famous mother. Do you know who Sean Astin's mother is?
I feel like I can't recall it. I feel like I've heard at some point who it is, but I couldn't tell you.
Listener, if you know it right now, shout at your podcast machine. But if you don't know, be prepared to learn that Sean Astin is Patty Duke's son.
Whoa.
Right? Isn't that strange?
That is strange.
I don't know why. Discovering this the other night, discovering it. I'm an archaeologist. I uncovered the information. It's available on Wikipedia. But it really shocked and floored me that Sean Astin is Patty Duke's son.
Okay, and then his adoptive father,
Yes.
is John Astin,
Mm-hmm.
who played Gomez Addams on the Addams Family television show.
That's right. So he's from like a television dynasty and became a movie star.
Oh my gosh. Patty Duke.
Yeah.
Would not have guessed.
When you were a child, did you watch the Patty Duke show?
No, but I was familiar with it because it aired on Nick at Night, right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so at some point it may have even aired on regular Nickelodeon because
Possibly.
because isn't she a teenager in that?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a YouTube channel that I watch called Be Kind Rewind.
Sure.
It
She
is-
was identical cousins, by the way. Which
Oh,
is
that's right.
It's something that they just make you. It's part of the theme song that they're identical cousins. You could lose your mind when cousins are two of a kind. They make you buy the premise that cousins can be identical and played by the same woman.
Wait, identical cousins.
Yes,
That's good.
They're cousins.
That's really good.
But they're identical.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
good. I watch a YouTube channel called Be Kind Rewind, and they did an episode about Valley of the Dolls, the making of Valley of the Dolls.
Okay. Yes.
And Patty Duke is in that movie,
Mhm.
and it was a really interesting episode. They talk. The creator talks about Patty Duke and the Patty Duke Show, which is where I learned
Yes.
the most about it. Wow, that is I did not know that. I did not know that.
Maybe now would be a good time to just say, if you're interested in our reactions to the Switch 2 reveal trailer, we put an episode out last Thursday where we reacted to it.
Against all appearances, this is in fact a Nintendo
This is in fact
show.
a Nintendo focused show, and we will get into more of that in a second. I was really blown away by this Patty Duke Sean Astin thing. Mark, if people would like to support us, they can head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/Nintendo Cartridge Society, where if you are supporting us at the 8 or 16-bit levels, you get access to our once-a-month episodes of miniseries like NCS Arcade.
Yes, in NCS Arcade, Patrick and I, generally speaking, play games that neither of us have beaten before. That is not the case for what we're going to be talking about in January, which is a trio of Nintendo arcade classics. Well, maybe one and like 3/4
I
of
would say two classics.
Two classics and Donkey Kong 3.
That's right.
So we're going to be talking about
a
Donkey
classic
Kong
in our hearts.
Yes, that's right. We definitely have affinity for Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong Jr., and Donkey Kong 3, the arcade versions. We'll be playing those, talking about that, and that episode will release the end of the month, beginning of next month. You know the drill.
That's right. And if you are following us for free on Patreon, you get access to our listener feedback episodes, which anyone can email us about the games that we are playing for NCS Arcade and ask their questions, give their observations about the game or games that we're playing. So you can email us Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. And again, those available to anyone who follows us at any level, including the free level on Patreon. While you're emailing us, you may as well get in the Discord, and I will send you an invitation if you email us. And that's it. Mark, we should get into what we've been playing this week.
Let's do it.
Okay, so first, we mentioned it at the top of this episode and in the special Thursday bonus episode that we put out, but Nintendo is holding these like in-person events to get hands-on experience with the Switch 2, and Mark and I have both signed up for the like lottery system for these things. Mark, do you think it matters like what time slot you sign up for? If one of those time slots fills up, do they try to like put you in a different one? Or
no, I'm guessing that so the way that it works, at least I'm assuming they're all the same, but I just signed up for the Los Angeles one.
Right.
And they're happening all over the world starting at the beginning of April and running through the end of May. And so we signed up with friend of the show, Connor McCabe, we signed up for the Saturday at like 10 a.m. in Los Angeles slot.
Mark putting our possible location on blast, but go ahead.
but like,
everyone be cool.
But I didn't realize how it was going to work because I didn't know if it would be just like one giant lottery where it's like, I want to go to the LA one and then any time works. Because truthfully, that would have been fine by me.
That's right.
And everybody just gets put in a big pot and then
you
like,
select
pulling
a
numbers
time.
out. So you select the time. So I'm guessing that the random drawing happens for each individual time period.
Wild. So maybe we should have signed up for what would be a less popular time.
Right. But who knows? Were there limits on how many people could sign up?
Great question.
I have no idea. The registration is still open, so it's not a first come first serve type thing. Nintendo's doing a lottery draw, so you have I think until the end of the 23rd. It's like 11:59 Pacific time to enter, and then they will do this random lottery. And so it's possible that like you and Connor will get tickets and I won't, or whatever, some sort of combination of that,
or possible that just Connor gets in and we have to have him on the show. Tell us all about the Switch 2. That would be okay.
That'd be great.
I would tolerate that. But
so
I hope we get in. I hope if you are living in a city near to one of these hands-on impressions that you register for this lottery and like hope to get in it.
Yeah, totally. And of course, even though registration was open for a week, I tried to sign up immediately when it opened.
Me too.
And there were just errors all over the place.
The website was bad for a little while. Our Maps did not exist or something. Is that what it was? Our Maps?
Something like
that. Some error message that we kept getting over and over again. But thankfully, that has all been remedied at this point. So we're signed up.
The other thing I've been playing is Shovel Knight. So I guess spoilers for Shovel Knight. I did finally beat. Well, we talked about it last week. I was stuck on the kind of like bonus level where you have the flying sword.
Yes,
and you're trying to get through that. So I got through that, and then I am now on I'm on the second part of the tower where there's like a boss rush.
Oh yes, yeah, where you just have to beat all of the what are they called? The Knights of No Quarter. Yeah.
Yes. So that's where I am right now. Question for you. So every time you die, you lose some amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And, the more money you have, the greater the value. So it's not like Odyssey where every time you just lose a set amount of coins no matter
Right,
how many coins
correct.
you have. But if you run out of money entirely, is it game over? Can you run out of money
No,
entirely?
you can't. I mean, I think you can run out of money entirely, but there's no
There's
game
no like
over.
penalty for it.
Right.
Other than you just don't have any money.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you're going into an area like the Knights of No Quarter boss rush and you're dying a lot and like losing money over and over again, maybe just head back to the village and spend as much money as you can. Right? Like because they can't take away things you've already invested in, right? And if there are, I assume that you like have all the meal tickets at this point, and you have all of the.
Yeah, that's the thing is I could buy more stuff, like I could buy the other armor and things like that.
Yeah, buy it all.
But I don't I don't feel any need to.
It might help you though fight these guys.
I guess.
What armor are you using right now? Just the base armor?
Or? No. I'm using the like the silver armor.
Okay.
I can't remember what the bonus does.
Okay.
Oh, I think it's. Oh no, maybe that's a helmet or shovel upgrade where if you jump on something twice, then you get
then you get
extra...
the powerful slash.
Yeah,
I think
remember...
that is a shovel upgrade.
Okay, then
maybe it's not. Maybe that is armor.
Yeah, I can't remember what the armor does, but it seemed the most useful to me.
Sure.
Anyways, that's where I am. But also, I've only attempted the boss rush once.
Sure.
And we just need to jump back into it.
Have you leveled up all of your relics? Because you can buy for like the second, like the leveled up version of each of them.
What?
Oh yeah.
I haven't leveled up any of my relics. I didn't even know you could.
You got to level up them relics, baby.
Where do you do that?
I forget.
I had no idea that was possible. Do you go back to the salesman in like that first town?
Send back to that merchant.
Because I feel like I've talked to him. Since then, there was no option to
maybe
upgrade
there are
my
other
relics.
people down there, right?
There are other people down there.
Talk to them.
Okay.
We're gonna figure it out.
Yeah. I'll go mess around. This is good.
Yeah.
This is good advice. This is good advice.
Yeah, if you've got like a ton of money just like burning a hole in your pocket, there's something you should be spending it on.
Oh, I did not know this. Okay, this is good. This is very good. I'm glad we talked about it.
I'm playing Plague of Shadows, the Plague Knight campaign within Shovel Knight, and this is the first time I've really like locked into it, and I like understand the way he moves. Before this, I also played through Shovel Knight. I played it many times before, so it didn't take me that long to do it. And I was like, I'm having a great time. I'm gonna go on to the Spectre Knight. Did that, played through it, beat it. Having a great time. It was like, let's keep the ball rolling. Let's do Plague Knight. And I am now also to basically the same spot where you are. Except I have taken on the boss rush, and well, I initially found Plague Knight to be like very difficult to control, and like found myself like losing in fights and stuff. With all of his relics and like special abilities, I mopped the floor with that boss rush. It's like nothing. I'm like a buzzsaw. They all fall before me. It's glorious. But so I'm really enjoying that. I'm having a tough time with the final Enchantress level, but it is. I'm having fun.
When it's Plague Knight,
yes,
is Shovel Knight one of the people in the boss rush, or is it just one less boss that you have to fight?
It's just one less boss that you have to fight. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, Shovel Knight is not in there. I think no, you have to fight the Black Knight before that. But it as part of his own level thing. So.
And we should maybe mention the reason why we're both playing Shovel Knight is because we're going to be on Connor McCabe's show.
Yes.
Later to talk about it. But originally we were going to talk about it this month because also there was going to be a Shovel Knight concert in Los Angeles this past Sunday that we were going to go to, but that got rescheduled for the end of March.
That's right.
But that's why we're playing.
That's why we're
Shovel
talking
Knight
about
right
so
now.
much Shovel Knight,
yeah.
Right? And also because if Mark is willing to entertain it, I will talk about Shovel Knight as much as anyone will tolerate. Mark, I gotta say, there's another game that I turned on yesterday because I was looking for something to play. This was during that time where I would have gone to a Shovel Knight concert if there was one, but there wasn't. So I turned on Phoenix Wright. I bought the Ace Attorney trilogy when it was on sale over the holidays. And I finally turned it on and like played through the first 2 chapters. And I gotta say, it has me missing Famicom Detective Club. It is fun, and I think like the mechanics of doing the trials themselves and like showing evidence and like objecting to the right stuff, or not objecting, but like
pointing out the inconsistencies.
That's right.
And all that stuff.
I think that is very fun. I do. There's something about the tone of it versus the tone of Famicom Detective Club, where like Famicom Detective Club largely takes itself seriously, and like Phoenix Wright does not, like, kind of at all.
Totally. Famicom Detective Club takes place in the real world.
Yes.
And some of the characters are silly, and some of the things that happen are like humorous.
Right.
But yeah, versus Ace Attorney, which is set in like a fictional alternate universe where the justice system like it doesn't really make sense.
It does not make a lot of sense. I mean, the first case that you try is your best friend is on trial for murder, and it turns out the real murderer is the only witness that the prosecution calls. So like it is silly from the get-go.
Yes, definitely.
And like there's a lot of like kind of more like anime reactions to stuff where I don't know, it's all very silly and fun and sort of like light in that way, which is maybe good because murders are happening like all the time, and if there were this many murders happening in a game that was like taking itself at all seriously, it would be a bummer to play.
Right.
But it is profoundly not a bummer to play.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. Is it like a deal breaker for you? Is that where you're leading to? Like, do you think that you're done with it?
No, I don't think I'm done with it. But it like just playing it made me want to like turn back on The Forgotten Heir and The Girl Who Stands Behind, games that I haven't played since we originally played through them
like 4
on
years.
the re-release. Yeah. And like I was trying to like think back on those stories, and I was like, I don't really remember like all the twists and turns. I remember some of like the characters and like the big reveals, but that's kind of it.
Yeah, totally.
And I just really, really like those games and like that music and stuff. The music in Ace Attorney, great, fantastic. I did have to turn down the sound effect of like the text going across the screen because it is relentless. There's always text. It's always that's like, nope, I cannot listen to this for the next however many hours.
Yeah.
How long are these games, generally speaking?
That's a good question. I honestly can't remember. Maybe 10 hours.
Okay.
Maybe something like that. There's a good number of cases in there.
And when's the last time you played Ace Attorney?
Let's see. When the collection was first released on Switch is probably the last time that I played the like that original trilogy.
Well, I can't say that I did this on purpose, but I like that there's like a little bit of like a culture exchange happening right now where you are playing Shovel Knight and I am playing Ace Attorney.
That's right.
All right, Mark, that's what we've been playing this week. Let's get into the new releases and what we might be playing next week.
Nintendo Music continues to get consistent updates Monday night, late afternoon. This week's update to Nintendo Music is Super Mario Kart for the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, a kind of a mixed bag of like classic Super NES sound chip sounds, and it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite soundtrack.
We were just kind of sampling the tracks before we started recording, and sometimes they just go too crazy with the Super Nintendo
sometimes
samples.
It's too crazy, yes.
But there are some real hits in there.
Yeah.
So sure. Super Mario Kart. Also not necessarily a new release, but sort of interesting note from the eShop's bestsellers list this week. Donkey Kong Country.
Sorta interesting.
Donkey Kong Country HD. Donkey Kong Country Returns HD.
Yes.
Ranks as the number 2 best-selling game on Switch this week on the eShop, being beaten out by Super Mario Party Jamboree. Still going strong.
Let's talk about this. So that's a new Nintendo release up against a new Nintendo release from like 2 months ago at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean October, right?
No, October was Zelda. November was Jamboree. Pretty sure.
I think that Zelda was September. Because I think
What was November then?
Brothership.
You are right. It is an October game, so it's like a 3-month-old game.
Yeah.
At this point, or 2.5, or whatever. Yeah. I guess all of which is to say that Super Mario Party Jamboree has legs.
Yeah, hopefully that's what it means, and not that they're going to take whatever code has been written for whatever Donkey Kong game they're
Right.
working on and just flush it down the toilet because Donkey Kong Country Returns HD didn't sell as well as Mario Party Jamboree.
I mean, they're both selling better than Minecraft, which I believe is number 3
Okay.
at the moment.
A game that has been out for...
But is Minecraft.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird time for Switch releases.
Totally,
right?
it absolutely is.
But yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, does it speak more to the power of Super Mario Party Jamboree or the I don't know, reception
kind
of
like
Donkey Kong
lackluster.
Country Returns HD?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're getting some of both. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of Mario Party Jamboree purchases in the last like 2 or 3 weeks are like the result of people with gift cards or whatever from Christmas, like finally cashing them in and getting, and when I say people, I mean like kids mostly,
Right?
Which I assume is the main audience for Super Mario Party, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I have no idea.
But yeah, so just a interesting little piece of data I wanted to point out.
And then today, January 21st, Mortal Kombat 1 is getting Conan the Barbarian early access DLC.
Right. Just sometimes it's fun to be like, look at what's happening in Mortal Kombat. I guess Conan the Barbarian. I don't know. I don't know why the things that they like put in these games. Like, I know there was a little bit where they were all on like slasher movie like killers, and now it's just kind of like in the abstract like gnarly heroes, because like they put Invincible's dad in the game earlier. His name like it's not Ultraman. Doesn't matter.
But I guess there's no reason anything can't get pulled into the Mortal Kombat universe,
sure.
Right. I have never seen anything Conan the Barbarian other than there was a live like stage / stunt show that was performed at Universal Studios in the early 90s. That's the only Conan the Barbarian thing I've ever seen.
Pretty good.
Sounds
great.
I've never seen the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I've never read any of the comics.
Well, he was in
nothing.
He was in 2 movies.
Oh, okay.
So there's Conan the Barbarian, which is the first one, and then like Conan the Conqueror, maybe, which was made like a couple years later and was like a PG movie after the first one was R-rated. Where they were like, oh yeah, it turns out 13-year-old boys love this.
It's
we
like
have to make a movie.
RoboCop.
Exactly. It's exactly like RoboCop. Who was in one of these Mortal Kombat games.
And hasn't Schwarzenegger also been represented by the Terminator?
Absolutely.
Didn't the Terminator
yes,
also
that's
show
right.
up in Mortal Kombat 1?
You saying that the only Conan that you know is this stunt show makes me think that they should absolutely put the Mariner from Waterworld as DLC in future
oh my gosh,
Mortal
that would
Kombat
be great.
games.
That'd be so great.
Or maybe the Deacon. Maybe the Deacon makes more sense. The
Deacon probably.
Yeah.
The Deacon. And then on Thursday, January 23rd, Guilty Gear Strive Nintendo Switch Edition is released.
I just think it's interesting that there is a specific Nintendo Switch edition of Guilty Gear Strive, which I believe was a year or 2 years ago at this point. So when it was released on other platforms.
And then finally, Star Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles, releasing on January 23rd as well.
Can we talk a little bit about, so we've been through a bunch of these like sort of PS1 PS2 era like Star Wars games,
licensed titles, yeah,
exactly, being like remastered and put out on Switch. Do you know Jedi Power Battles at all?
No.
It to me looks like maybe the like lowest common denominator of like, here are the Jedis that appear in Star Wars Episode 1. They have lightsabers, and it's just like a brawler style game.
Oh, interesting.
Where you go from left to right, like chopping up battle droids.
Oh. Do you get to play as that one on the Jedi Council that has like a really long?
I don't think you get to play as like the really long neck, right? I don't think you get to play as that one, but you can play as Mace Windu, and because this is
cool.
From based on Episode 1, his lightsaber's not purple yet.
Oh, because you don't see his lightsaber.
You don't see his lightsaber in Episode 1.
I can't believe that there are like more Star Wars Episode 1 licensed video games to re-release and to uncover. Like, I have not heard about this one. I'm wondering what else is out there. There were so many of these Episode 1 video games.
Well, and it makes me like it. Look, a lot of these games are probably awful, right? I am a little tempted by this one just because, like, I would walk to the right and swing a lightsaber. Like, that sounds like fun.
Also funny, not part of like that. I'm assuming this is put out by Aspire as well. I don't know that for sure.
So too,
but not part of that like big collection.
Right. Well, and like that big collection is like mostly PS2 games, right?
Oh, okay.
This was originally a PlayStation 1 game. But you know, regardless. So I'm interested in playing it. What was my point? What was I driving at here? Saying something about, it makes me sort of like long for a day when like there was just a crappy tie-in for like a specific movie in Star Wars.
I was thinking the same thing, where because video games are so expensive to make now, we don't really get licensed like movie tie-in
like
games
outside
anymore.
Of the mobile space,
outside of the mobile space, right? But it's like, there's a new like I don't know, like that Elio Pixar movie that's coming later this year, or
the Smiling
like Captain
Man.
America, or like Captain America,
right?
This new Captain America movie, you know, in the Nintendo 64 era, or we would be getting some probably really bad title timed to the release of that movie.
Totally.
But video games are too expensive now, so you don't get that. And it's not that all those games were like good, but I remember playing like the Harry Potter Chamber of Secrets one, and just being able to like be in that world was exciting.
Right. Well, and like, you know, it could take something that like maybe didn't land the way it like was supposed to, or like I'm just thinking about like you could do an Acolyte video game that's just like a one-on-one lightsaber fighter, with like all the Jedis that are introduced in there, and the stranger, whatever they called, like the dark side user, and like just put them all in there, and that could be it. You know, like 8, 9, 10 fighters, whatever, and it'd be rad.
I know. I think you're right, and I think that it just speaks to the kind of the problem with modern video games.
Totally, yes.
Which is just that the stakes are so high for every release.
Yes, right.
Whereas, like, what were the stakes for Star Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles? You know?
Yeah.
Had to have been low enough because they made so many, you know, Star Wars Episode 1 games to tie in with that movie, and now you don't get any. You don't get anything like that.
You don't get anything like that. You have to wait for like, you know, 3 years after it's originally announced to get another like Star Wars Lego game that finally puts episodes 8 and 9 in Lego game form, and you know, like it's all like not quite there.
Yeah.
All right,
that's it.
I think that's it. All right, Mark, let's close out the new releases. Which brings us to a regular segment on our show, and it's time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, where a performer or group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo, so for the duration of one performance, 433, Mark and I'll talk about something not at all Nintendo-related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. Mark, we're talking about slip and slides, and by extension, other like lawn entertainments that you would have engaged with as a child.
I know that like my cousins had a slip and slide.
I think
they were not identical cousins.
Okay. Does slip and slide require definition at this point?
Oh,
do they still exist?
I don't know if they still exist. I would guess yes, that they still exist.
Okay.
But yeah, slip and slide is basically just a piece of plastic that you lay like on your lawn. So some of them have like you connect a hose to it, and
so there's water like running through it to give it like a little bit of a cushion or whatever.
Exactly, and just like make it slick.
Yeah.
And then you run at the slip and slide, and I think maybe it comes with like a little blow up like board that you can like body surf on.
All right.
Or you just throw your body
your belly on it. Yeah, that's right.
And just slip and slide down this
Right.
wet piece of plastic.
And this was definitely one of those things that when we were growing up, like in the same vein as like Nerf and like all this kind of stuff, where it's just like, this is like the active toy.
Yes, but it was also
This
like
and
advertised on
yeah.
like Nickelodeon or whatever all the
Relentlessly,
time.
yes. Along with like the Crocodile Mile, which is like a version of it that had like a pool at the end of it.
Yep. Slip and slide is one of those things where we didn't own one. I remember,
But your identical cousins
but
did.
they were not identical cousins. I was on the Patty Duke show. The name of that little girl was me. The go down the slip and slide. But now as an adult, I don't know that I would be able to throw my body.
I would not be able
Like,
to.
I think I have a mental block that it would be
Yes.
really hard for me to just like let go and try to do it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And it's obviously way different when you're a kid. You have like no sense of you're falling all the time anyway, right? And yeah, I don't. You have no like self-preservation in that regard. You
Right.
just throw your body on the ground, and but yeah, like just thinking of like, did you check to make sure that all of that area that you put the slip and slide over doesn't have like, I don't like a hammer in there or something?
Yeah, you're not putting it over like rusty nails.
Could be rusty nails.
Uh-huh.
Maybe there's like a groundhog that lives under it.
Yep.
You don't want him popping out.
Nope. But yeah, slip and slide looms large. Otherwise, we didn't really have a lot of like lawn toys. What about
Yeah,
you?
well, we didn't have a slip and slide, and like we had a big enough yard that like it would have made sense for it, but we just never really did that.
Did you have other summertime? Like, would you play in the sprinklers? Like,
Yeah, like a little bit, like not a lot. We were within walking distance of the town club, which was kind of a low rent country club that had a pool that we would swim in. So like that was our summertime activity. We could walk over there and swim in the pool. What
is
are you
that a
laughing
real
at?
thing? Is like country club, town club? Like, is there another? Like, are they like
village
tiers?
club?
Right.
I don't know. I've never encountered another town club in my life.
Right.
But the Kenosha town club was a fact of everyday life for me growing up.
Yeah, that's just funny.
No, and you're right. It is funny. What about trampolines? Did you ever?
We did
you
have
have-
a trampoline.
Did you have like a big trampoline? or
Yeah,
just,
we
like,
had one
that
of like
little-
the large trampolines that was elevated, so it wasn't like ground level or anything
Yeah.
like that. And so sometimes we would like put a hose on. We did have a neighbor break their ankle, but otherwise,
Yeah.
I'm surprised that was the only injury that anybody incurred, because
But it's crazy to like toss off someone's broken ankle.
they're kids.
I again,
They
I
just
understand.
bounce back.
They bounce right back.
Yeah.
Because like right now, if I break my ankle, that's catastrophic.
You could die.
Right, Kyle. I hope you're doing okay, buddy. But right, but it is very funny that for children, you're just like, yeah, they're fine.
Uh-huh.
We had a swing set in the backyard,
Mm-hmm.
which we would just like swing for hours. Like friends would come over and we just like sit on the swings and talk while swinging
Uh-huh.
for forever and ever. And then we had like a little playhouse in the backyard that I had wallpapered with Nintendo Power posters.
Oh, that's fun.
But of course, now wish I hadn't mangled those Nintendo Powers. So
Yeah. We had like two big weeping willows in our front yard, and they, when you plant a tree sometimes, like when it's smaller, you'll put these poles next to it to kind of like give it strength and everything until it grows.
That's the end of the recording.
Oh,
by the
okay.
way,
Well,
but
then we'll never know.
we'll never know the end of that anecdote. We were accompanied today by guitarist Phil Nell. All right, Mark, let's get into the news.
Well, of course, the Switch 2 was officially revealed last week, and like Patrick mentioned at the top of the show, after we had been talking about Sean Astin for a while.
And Patty Duke.
And Patty Duke, that we put out an emergency episode last Thursday,
Yes.
reacting to that. So if you're interested in what we thought about the Switch 2 reveal and you haven't listened to that yet, you can go back and check out that episode. On that episode, we mentioned that Nintendo was reportedly prepared to meet high demand for Switch 2 consoles later this year when it's released. And we just wanted to loop back
Looping
on
back
kind of
on
like
it.
the source
Yes.
for that. Nintendo has
'Cause
talked about.
I tossed it off. I was just like, they're going to make a lot of these things.
Right. And
Yeah.
Nintendo, in the investor Q&As has talked about we want to get ahead of scalping, like all that kind of stuff. Like we're going to try to make as many of these as we can. But Bloomberg reports that industry analyst Robin Zhu believes Nintendo is ready to sell over 20 million units of Switch 2's first year on the market.
Right, which is a lot of units. But as a point of comparison, the original Switch sold 15 million copies within its first year, within its first like 4 quarters on the market. So this is 1/3 again more units than that, and more than 20 million is the verbiage that Zhu used there. But what do you think, Mark? Is that enough?
Yeah, who knows? Because with the Switch, when it first came out, there were shortages. Like,
Yes.
People wanted one, they weren't available. But
And it was also before the word of mouth of Switch had done its work.
Very true,
right?
yeah.
And before like Breath of the Wild had demonstrated itself as an undeniable game to everyone, right?
Well, and I wonder if Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is instructive here as well. Like, Tears of the Kingdom got off to a much faster start than Breath of the Wild. It makes sense. There were
Great
so
point,
many more
right.
Switches in the
Mhm.
wild by the time that Tears of the Kingdom was released. Breath of the Wild, like a sequel to Breath of the Wild was a big deal. And so a lot of people rushed out to buy it, whereas the initial sales for Breath of the Wild were more of like a long, consistent
right.
stream. And I wonder if a similar story will be true here, where it's like if it's true that Nintendo is trying to have 20 million of these ready to go in its first year, even if it sells more than the Switch in its first year, I don't think it actually tells us like the
how its
relative
longevity,
success of
right.
the two. Yeah.
Well, because like the base Nintendo audience has grown tremendously in the last 8 years, right?
Right.
Where it was not like any, nowhere shabby, right? Like Nintendo fans were Nintendo fans, and there were like a lot of them.
Well, I would say by like in the Wii U era,
Yes.
it was probably dire straits. Like
Sure.
there were like hardcore Nintendo fans, but we maybe saw how many of those there are in the world when the Wii U sold.
Sure, 13 million.
13
right.
million.
Yeah. But I think there's like there's that, but like there's also like the 3DS was still like a going concern at that time. So like I think there are. I think it was just more than that, right? I think that it was but still a smaller like pool to draw from than there is now.
Sure.
And that's also just like true of gaming in general, that there are more gamers now. There are more people like available to buy a new Nintendo console now than there were 8 years ago. That being said, 20 million is a lot of units to move in a year.
I mean, it would be more than the Wii U sold in its entire lifetime.
Yeah, that's right.
We talked about this off mic, but I don't think that anybody has expectations that the Switch 2 is going to be bigger than the Switch.
Right.
Like, it just doesn't seem possible. The Switch was to be possibly the best-selling home console of all time, if not right below the PlayStation 2.
Right.
I just don't feel like
how could the expectations be there?
Yeah, to do that again. But obviously, I think Nintendo is maybe uniquely poised this time to be in a position where they can capitalize on being kind of mid-generation for Sony and Xbox.
Right. They're not competing for those dollars or for that attention.
And the Switch was so successful, they're not, as so far as we've seen, like really taking any crazy swings to try to do like the Switch and then also this other thing. It's just
sure, yeah.
It just feels like a kind of straight down the barrel evolution on the Switch concept.
Right.
And so yeah, like I don't know, it will be interesting to see. It also just feels like third parties, and the rumors are that third parties are like poised to really support the Switch 2 in a way that a lot of them never did with the Switch. And
or hadn't done in like 7 years. Yeah.
And that might be enough of a difference maker, where it's like the Switch 2 is going to be more powerful. It'll have some additional features. It seems like, the Joy-Con being able to be used as optical mice or mouses is all but confirmed. Right. But it feels like the secret sauce that does push the Switch 2 even further is like, I guess basically what I'm saying is like the variable, the unknown feels like it's like third-party support. If third-party support is there, if like Grand Theft Auto 6 is published on this thing, or like
or like Elden Ring or whatever,
like what, or Elden Ring 2, what,
or even there's another Elden Ring like solo or like a standalone experience that's coming out. I think this year. Was announced at the Game Awards, so maybe it's next year, but
yeah, it's like, okay, well, that is something that the Switch never had, and what does that do?
Right.
Like, is there actually room for it to do better than the Switch?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good question, and I wonder what Nintendo's like internal expectations are for it. Obviously, it's sell 20 million of them within the first year, right?
Yes, and it'll also be interesting to see, like, let's say the 20 million number is true, then is that 20 million backloaded where the beginning is, there's still some
a little
scarcity,
bit supply constrained,
but then by the holidays, it's really easy to go in and pick up a Switch.
Right.
In some ways seems ideal.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like get the hardcore out there and bringing it to Thanksgiving, and then people being like, "Oh, we got to buy this thing for Christmas." Yeah,
yep,
makes sense.
Nintendo posted a message on Twitter last week warning players against using unauthorized third-party resources for playing online games on Wii U.
Yes. So this was just like they posted this message on Twitter, sort of apropos of nothing, or like without providing any other context. Just that they said that they had been made aware of resources like this. They're likely referring to something like Pretendo, which is like an open source server for like continued Wii U online support, and like. I just saw a lot of reaction to this that was like, Nintendo's trying to stop us from like using and they're just saying, don't use this. We have security concerns.
Yeah, to me it feels like Nintendo just being
washing their hands.
Exactly, just being like, hey, we warned you. We're telling you don't do this.
Right.
And then
that's not us. We're not providing you with this service. If something bad happens to you while you're using it, you can't come crying to us about it.
Right. In the same way that Nintendo is so careful with like online interactions and all that kind of stuff,
right?
Because they don't want somebody to have a bad experience and then have that be their fault, Nintendo's fault.
Right.
I think the same thing is true here.
Or like how Nintendo was very like they're very particular about letting events use like Super Smash Brothers and their like fighting game tournaments, where it's like if it's not something that they're in control of, they don't feel good with like the fighting game community going rogue and running their own Smash Brothers tournaments and associating the Nintendo brand with whatever goes on at those tournaments. And there were a couple of years ago where there's stuff coming out about bad behavior at these tournaments that involved children playing Smash Brothers. So it all makes sense to me.
Yeah, the statement in part says, quote, "Please refrain from using such services as they may pose unexpected security risks."
So, I mean, if you're sailing on the high seas of video game piracy anyway, I think you're probably accepting some of that risk and uncertainty. But Nintendo, just warning you against it.
Hollow Knight Silksong is still real.
Mm-hmm.
Team Cherry's PR rep, Matthew Griffin, a.k.a. Leth, responded to a question on Twitter asserting that the game was, quote, real, progressing, and will release.
It will release, Mark.
Last time we heard anything about Silksong, was it really E3 2019 when the game was at Nintendo's booth?
Yeah.
Wow.
Remember walking by it?
I do.
Seeing it on the screen? Yeah. Yeah, and then it was a part of Treehouse Live afterward. Obviously this is one of those like indie white whales that like has just been out there for a while, and we have known that like it's coming, but haven't really heard anything about it for a super long time.
Yeah, I feel like every Nintendo Direct for the past 4 years, or Indie World Showcase or whatever, anytime that there is a Nintendo presentation or a Microsoft presentation,
Right.
or even a PlayStation presentation,
It's like, where's Silksong?
yeah, this is the one. But yes, I mean, Switch 2 launch title.
Well, okay, so let's actually talk about this, because I do think it's interesting that like there are a couple like big like indie things, and like the Switch when it originally launched was like very closely connected to the indie games that sort of filled out the roster in the first couple years, when there was like literally nothing on the eShop, right? I've already mentioned Shovel Knight, but Spectre of Torment came out first on Switch. Hades was a Switch exclusive when it first, or console exclusive when it finally hit 1.0. Celeste, same thing. And like Hollow Knight was a big performer on Switch as like part of its like early indie lineup. So I'm wondering if like Nintendo recognizes that that's like part of their value. And in some ways, like maybe we're waiting on Silksong announcement, because it is, as you say, going to be a Switch 2 launch title.
And I
feel the same way about Hades 2.
Oh yeah, I can
Yeah.
see that. I feel like I have a memory of Silksong being in a Indie World Showcase as like first on Switch, or a
Oh yeah, great question. I don't remember.
I can't remember either, but yeah, I feel like there was some association with Silksong and Nintendo already.
It was at the Nintendo booth.
Right, and I feel like there was a reason for that, but it's been so many years and I haven't been following it that closely.
Right.
I can't remember. But yeah, maybe. But also I feel like people have been saying, "Oh, just this next time is when it'll show up."
Right. Yes,
and it hasn't
you're right.
shown up. So
It's
who
been
knows?
5.5 years since that E3.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
That's all.
IGN recently interviewed Shigeru Miyamoto, and the Nintendo stalwart got wistful about his memories of working on the Wii with Satoru Iwata, saying, quote, "The Wii is special to me. At the time, I and Iwata felt that games were becoming something specifically for gamers, and we wanted to change that by creating something that could be experienced by anybody. That was the driving force behind the Wii, and it was something that we were kind of able to actually accomplish. Looking at the photos of families playing together, it makes me happy to think that the population of people that play games increased because of the Wii."
Is there a video game console with a clearer reason to exist and a clearer mission statement than the Wii that like actually delivered on it?
Yeah,
too?
it's hard to think of one. I can't think of one.
It really is like a revolutionary thing that they were able to do. And like you and I were both big fans of the Wii when it came out. It's just sort of I don't know. I think that thing's place in like video game history is just so fascinating. And it's cool to have Miyamoto be able to reflect on what exactly they were trying to accomplish with it, and then what they did accomplish with it. And that they're the same thing is kind of remarkable.
I know. I think that's what's so interesting, that he even calls it out, being like, and we were actually kind of able to do that.
Yeah.
Because everything on with the Wii in the beginning was so, my memory of it anyways, is that it was so like clear in its mission and its purpose, and like what it was trying to do, and that was alienating to a lot of people that were hoping Nintendo would try to win the hardware race again.
Right. Can I throw a yes but into
Yeah,
that?
please.
That like I agree, but it also launched with Twilight Princess.
Right.
Right, which was like and especially like as the years go on is even more fondly remembered as like a really incredible Zelda game, 3D Zelda game, that like it had Wii Sports, which your grandma could play, but it also had a Zelda game, which was pretty cool and dark and fun.
Yeah, and I you're totally right. I don't think that like muddles the message of what they were trying to say with the Wii, because I think the idea of the Wii is that it could be both.
Yes.
But just that it was like so targeted in that like it could be it could be all of that. You could have an experience playing The Legend of Zelda. You could do Wii Play, or like Wii Sports or whatever. It's
or
like
Wii Fit,
whatever.
yeah. But I think
anybody can game.
Yes, anyone can game, and that like even though they didn't like seem to program the transition from like, oh, you play Wii Sports, so here's like the reasonable tracking to playing Zelda. Just the two things are available on the system at the same time, and that there must have been some people that onboarded on one and got to the other.
Right.
And maybe something like Mario Kart Wii is, or Super Mario Galaxy, that those are games that like act as bridges between the more like casual motion-based games and become more like gamers, whatever that means, and just like kind of blurring all those lines. I don't know. They did accomplish it, and it's nice to hear Miyamoto reflecting on that.
A little less wistful, but no less in character. Legendary game developer Hideki Kamiya released a statement about the Switch 2 leaks and people that were leaking information about the Switch 2.
Yes, and this is fun, which is why we're reading it.
Yeah, that's right. Kamiya is famously salty, the developer behind games like Resident Evil 2, Devil May Cry, the Bayonetta series, Wonderful 101, Okami, and the upcoming Okami 2.
Yes, and he is known on Twitter in particular, but I think just like elsewhere in social media spaces for being prickly, right? That
yes.
Like when anyone asks him a question about something that he has no control over or that he doesn't even want to answer, he just like quote tweets it, or like it just does like a screenshot of it usually, right? And just is like blocked, right? He has no patience for anyone wasting his time or even like annoying him a little bit.
Yeah. Do you want to read it?
Oh, should I? I'll read the quote here, and just be forewarned that there's some swearing in here. So if you're listening with kids and you don't want them to hear some swearing, it's nothing awful, but like here it is. Quote, I hope that all the people who leaked Switch 2 information / those that helped leak it will get cursed for the rest of their lives to always have poop on the soles of their shoes when they get home. The shitty leaker only acts for his own pleasure and self-satisfaction. Not only is he not contributing to anyone's benefit, he is incurring all sorts of opportunity losses and has done nothing to be proud of in front of others. He is the worst of scum, and so he should be covered in shit from head to toe and thrown out of the atmosphere, and then stop thinking and wander forever. These damn leakers are in a position of responsibility where they have access to information that only a very select few know. Yet what they do is nothing more than an expression of filthy desire for approval that lacks any shred of rationality. They are shameful people, so it is not the manufacturers whose secrets that have been exposed who should be blamed, but these damn people, and they need to be crushed as soon as possible. Harsh words.
Yeah.
From our boy Kamiya.
Yep.
I think they should be covered head to toe in shit
and flung out of the atmosphere.
I mean, from like a whenever you're working on like a creative project or like looking to launch something, you do feel like sensitive about any of it being revealed or explored or leaked or whatever ahead of time, right? Stuff isn't good until it's ready. And yeah, so I mean, like, I get where he's coming from, I guess, is what I'm driving at.
Yeah, but you're right. A typical understated, classy statement from Hideki Kamiya.
All right, Mark, let's get out of the news. That's the wrong sound cue. Look, we had talked about maybe not doing music cues, and I guess the issue with doing fewer music cues is that there are fewer opportunities for me to mess up. So it's back. Messing up the sound cues is back. Mark, let's get out of the news. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. If you would like to be in our Discord, email us. We'll send you an invitation. Anthony DeLuca made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying thank you for listening.